Now the smoke lets off. It looked like Scott Brayton, a little bit of smoke coming from this youngster's car, a guy who's qualified in 12th position, one of his finest efforts of the year, commenting about the Grand National stock cars earlier. Their problem was one of the track being a little slippery because of the sealer on the racetrack. For the Indy cars, it's a little rough. The drivers say they've softened up the suspension. They're ready to go.
Bobby Rahal, the pole sitter, pulls well ahead of the pack now, and because he really jumped out to too much of a lead, they're not going to display the green flag this time. The driver's holding up their hands, signaling that we'll go one more time before we get the green. Looks like Bobby was out there quite a bit before they approach the place where the green flag normally drops.
Gordy, in a situation like that, you're actually looking at the pole setter who has normally the responsibility to determine the speed of the start. The outside guy, the guy bringing around the outside row, sort of his job to keep up. What happened in that instance as you saw it?
Well, it looked like Rahal just got a jump all of a sudden on him, and I was glad to see him not drop the flag because he was really too far out in front. The rest of them were pretty well lined up, but Rahal was pretty well out in front. So I was glad to see him not drop the green flag.
Now, this is an interesting front row. Bobby Rahal, a newcomer to this type of racing a year ago, and Johnny Rutherford, who has been in and out of the division because he's had a couple of crashes that have injured him. And, you know, a year or two ago, you would not have been surprised to see Johnny Rutherford on the front row, but here in the latter stages of the 1983 season, a front row that 2 years ago you wouldn't even dreamed of.
Well, yes, you know, he's with the Patrick Racing team, the same as I am, and we've had a rough time of it this year. There's no question about that. We've had a lot of crashes and a lot of misfortunes, but I think they're getting things together now. The last race, Danny and Gaius finished 5th, so I think they're getting things together again.
All right, the field moves out of turn number 4 once again, and hoping for a green flag this time. They come down in much better order this time, and Nick Finoro, the official starter for Championship Auto Racing Teams, displays the green flag, and the Detroit News Grand Prix is underway. 25 cars. Dick Simon did get out on the racetrack before the green flag dropped, so a full field of 25 Indy cars heading for turn number 2, being led down the backstretch by Bobby Rahal. Here is our shot as the cars come off of the 18-degree banking onto the relatively flat backstretch, where speeds can exceed 210 miles an hour. Now Bobby Rahal sets that car in the middle of turns 3 and 4. Speeds here somewhere around 206 or 207 miles an hour, and off the 4th turn they come. Mario Andretti, and in 4th place is Tom Sneva.
The speeds at Michigan International Speedway. If you've been listening to what happens at Indianapolis, of course, you might say 200 miles per hour, ho-hum, but at Michigan International Speedway, you're absolutely right on the ragged edge all the way around. You're in a corner a lot of the time here at Michigan. It's not exactly an oval. It is a tri-oval, similar to Daytona and Talladega. There are 4 corners, but there's also a 5th turn, a kink right in the middle of the front straightaway. And Gordy, I'll tell you, the G-forces really do tug on you, don't they?
Well, yes, they do, especially in a long race like the 500 miles. And it'll be tough here, too, because the guys are running only 200 miles and they're running flat out. You can tell the way the front runners are running right now that, you know, they're going for the whole thing. They're not backing off or waiting for the end of like a 500-mile race. They've got to go out there and go for it.
Al Unser Jr. started this race in 23rd position, and it was our interest, of course, to see how well he performed at the drop of the green flag. And our spotters tell us that Al Unser Jr. passed 9 cars in lap number 1 and is making his way toward the front of this field. They combine to complete lap number 3. Still, Bobby Rahal showing the way. Johnny Rutherford running in 2nd position. Good battle for 3rd between Tom Sneva and Mario Andretti. Al Unser Jr., the driver of car number 17. That, of course, is the Coors Light Silver Bullet. And Eagle Cosworth moving up fast in the field.
Those 2 white cars you see on your screen, I believe it's Kevin Kogan, and Kevin was racing with Teo Fabi. No, it's not Kevin. It is Tom Sneva moving to the inside of Johnny Rutherford, followed by Mario Andretti. Kogan and Teo Fabi were side by side a little earlier. You caught that on our shot coming out of turn number 4. Again, that is Sneva, followed closely by Mario Andretti. And you can see when you get out of the throttle, even though you had momentum going in, as Sneva tried to get to the inside of Rutherford, once you just got out of that throttle, even the slightest little bit, you lose a lot of ground on this racetrack because you're going so fast all the way around at every point on the speedway.
Yes, that's very much true, Larry. You got a heck of a race going on here for second spot between Rutherford, Sneva, and Andretti. Andretti's really moved up fast here. He was right up there side of him. Sneva's moving up side of Rutherford right now, going into number 1.
Into turn number 1, and Tom Sneva gets his nose in front of Johnny Rutherford and makes the pass going into turn number 1. So Tom Sneva now moves into second place. Mario Andretti also goes to the low side of Johnny Rutherford and takes over third. So in just the quick flash of an eye, Johnny Rutherford drops from second to fourth.
Yes, Johnny got a little bit high there between 1 and 2, and it allowed Mario to slip right under him at the same time that Tom did.
There again is second, third, and fourth. And Bob, here's a replay of the start of the race. Watch Al Unser Jr., the red nose in that white car. Look at the jump he gets coming through the trial. He goes to the high side of Roger Mears, threads the needle, goes right between a couple of other competitors. Looks like Chris Neifel slowing a little bit in the middle of the corner, but look at the jump that Al Unser Jr. gets. He's passed 3 cars in 1 corner, make it 5 cars in 2 corners, setting up going down the backstretch, and he made up a lot of ground very early on.
So obviously Al Unser Jr. has the engine problems that he suffered yesterday in practice ironed out, and he is moving up quickly. There you can see him going around Howdy Holmes in turn number 3 on lap number 1 and continuing to thread his way through the traffic and up toward the front of the pack. Al Unser Jr. back live now to the activity on the racetrack. Tom Sneva has moved into second position. Running third is Mario Andretti, and back to fourth is Johnny Rutherford. This is only Johnny Rutherford's third race of the year. He competed in the very first race at Atlanta, then was injured, of course, at Indianapolis. He competed in Pocono, where he had another misfortune, and a tire came off. The car crashed. He is in his third race of the year, qualified well in second position. Johnny Rutherford looking for somewhat of a comeback here this weekend. Chris Neifel, car number 72, the CFI Primus, brings his car into the pit area, as obviously something has gone wrong. We only anticipate 2 normal pit stops during this 100-lap, 200-mile race. Our coverage will resume in just a moment with Bobby Rahal leading.
The car owner of Al Unser Jr.'s Eagle. You got off to a great start, but now I see he's falling back a couple of spots.
Yeah, the car's pushing a little bit. We need to, our next pit stop, we're going to try to come in and adjust the front wing because it's pushing a little bit. But he got off to a good start. We got the car sorted out last night, so hopefully, we can get things worked out.
And this being a real sprint car race, you're really trying to play the yellow lights for that first pit stop.
I didn't hear you.
You're going to try to play the yellow for that first pit stop.
Oh yeah, everybody will do that. So it's just see what happens.
So as always, the cockpit is where the strategy is coming from.
That's right. He's the one doing the job.
Thank you, Rick.
Tough luck for Johnny Rutherford, who started second, fell back to fourth, and he had a problem last lap as the car was in turn number 1. We'll take a look at what happened while we were away for commercial. Johnny Rutherford, a big puff of smoke from that engine going into turn 1.
Well, remember that Johnny had just been passed by Tom Sneva and Mario Andretti. Don't know if that was one of the things that contributed to his being passed by those two, but you see Johnny looking to get down out of the racing groove and out of the way. He ducked down to the low side of the racetrack going down the backstretch. And Gordon, when he came around, it appeared as though he was coming in under power. He did not look like he was coasting at all.
Yes, he definitely looked like he was under power, but you could see the puff of smoke was pretty bad when he went into the number 1 corner, and evidently it's something he knew because he did slow down and get out of the groove. So it's just not just an ordinary oil leak.
Good race for 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th position involved in that. Teo Fabi, also in there is Al Unser Sr. and Mike Mosley. They go down the backstretch, and Teo Fabi has managed to get around both of those cars and move into 4th place.
Well, Teo got a nice draft of wind coming down through the trioval, went to the inside of both, and look at the distance he has opened up. I was about to comment, Bob, that this is the first time this year that I could remember seeing Teo actually back up a little bit in the early stages of the race. He had started in 3rd position and had dropped back to about 6th or so. But boy, he's really picked up the steam in the last couple of laps here. Look at the tight grouping of cars going through the trial, going into the number 1 corner.
That's the race for 5th position. Involved Rick Mears, Al Unser Sr., also Kevin Cogan, and Mike Mosley. They begin to go around some of the slower cars as they go down the backstretch. Once again, we remind you that time permitting, we will have live coverage of the Super B race from here at Michigan, which immediately follows this race. We mentioned to you earlier that we had some rain here earlier this morning in Michigan, and there is still a haze hanging over this 2-mile racetrack, and visibility is not all that great at this point.
That was Roger Mears, the white car that you see on the tail of that tandem. Kevin Cogan there moving to the inside of Mike Mosley as this battle royale continues. That was not one of those front runners, the cream-colored car that was drifting out of your picture. Again, Roger Mears, who has already been into the pits once. Incidentally, Chris Neifel also pitted early, and that car is being pushed behind the pit wall. So those are two of the early dropouts here in the race today.
We understand that Chris Neifel has dropped out of the race due to electrical problems, and the black flag is being displayed to car number 11, driven by Bill Alsop because of a broken nose cone. So Bill will have to come in for consultation. Johnny Rutherford, meanwhile, has pulled back out onto the racetrack as we continue to watch this battle for 5th position.
But he's still smoking, Bob. You can see him on the apron down there, and he was still smoking. I don't know if it's oil that was left on the car from before or what, but he's surely not going very fast going through 1 and 2 on the apron. So it looks like he's definitely still got a problem.
Kevin Cogan trying to set up the points leader. Al Unser Sr. down the backstretch, pulls out of the draft, ducks down low, going into the 18-degree, banking into turn number 3, and Cogan picks up a position, but it might be temporary. You never know how things go on a big high bank super speedway. Sometimes you get that pass or you get the lead, but it only lasts for a half a lap or maybe one more lap. If you can stay in the draft, you can always catch him.
And that is Mike Mosley also doing battle there with Al Unser Sr. as Teo Fabi and Rick Mears, who were running in this group, have now pulled on ahead, and it's basically a 3-car battle here. There is Johnny Rutherford still running very slowly on the racetrack over in turn number 4, and it looks like that he may come back into the pit area once again. Let's go to Gary Lee in the pit area.
Jim McGee, the team manager in the Johnny Rutherford stable. You got off to a good start. What's the problem now?
Well, it looks like we've developed some kind of a water leak, a radiator or something. Maybe got a rock through the radiator, but it's pouring water out the left side of the car, so we're going to have to bring it in, and that's about it.
Terminal.
What's that?
It's terminal.
Well, we could fix it, but we're about 8 laps down now, and there's no way we can win it, so we just think we'll just park it.
Look for Johnny Rutherford back in the pits momentarily.
And Johnny Rutherford has indeed pulled behind the wall, so that makes him an early retiree from the Detroit News Grand Prix here at Michigan International Speedway. We've completed 19 laps, and the average speed so far with all green, 196.18 miles an hour. Bobby Rahal continues to lead, Tom Sneva second, Andretti third, and Mears fourth. The interval between himself and second-running Tom Sneva has been closing in the last few laps. The big story right now, though, more disfortune for Johnny Rutherford, who has dropped out of the competition early.
Johnny, it's been a most trying season, but you put the new Wildcat in the front row. You got off to a good start today, but you have to be terribly disappointed right now.
Well, we really are, you know, but then it's kind of been like this all season, so I know how to handle it by now, and it's not fun. The car was feeling good, but evidently developed a water leak of some type, and was spraying out while I was running. The front end started pushing pretty bad on the car, and we were trying to jack with that and make it right, but it just wasn't our day.
When things are going well, you develop your confidence, a certain rhythm. When things are going poorly, as they have this season, do you kind of get in the car and say, well, JR, what's going to happen to us today?
Well, I guess to a degree, deep down inside you do. You try to keep your confidence level up, but, you know, these things happen. And it's a brand new race car, and there are a lot of things that can happen to a new car, and we've discovered one today, I'm afraid, and that's just the way it goes.
Out early, but still with a smile on your face. Thank you, John.
Well, I've got to keep my spirits up. I want to say hi to all my family in Fort Worth and everybody, and we'll be at the next one ready to go.
Thank you, John.
All right, and on the racetrack, battle between Teo Fabi in 5th place and Kevin Cogan in 6th as the cars head into turn number 3. Teo Fabi, the winner of our most recent one of the races we did earlier this year. He has won twice on the CART PPG IndyCar World Series Trail 4 this year. And Teo Fabi this afternoon started in 3rd position at 202.640 miles an hour. But Kevin Cogan, who started this race 7th, is giving him a battle.
And remember how fast Kevin was here a year ago. He led this race in the early stages, and we saw Kevin a number of times in the 1982 season show his ability to go fast, and also recall the slight tweaking in the strategy for the Forsythe Skoal Bandit team, that green and white number 33 that Teo Fabi shared with us the last time we covered the Indianapolis cars a week ago from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Ohio. saying that they're going to concentrate just a little more on the championship than they had early on in the season. They didn't really think they would have this close of a shot at it when the year began, but things have been going so well. The performance has been so great from the team and Teo combined that they're really thinking championship now, and I think we're seeing a little bit of evidence of that. Teo Fabi has shown the ability to be as fast, or maybe faster is the correct word, than any car on the racetrack most every race this year. But right now he's running a comfortable position. And Gordy, you know, it's a little similar to where he was last week in Mid-Ohio when you said, I like the race he's running.
Yes, it was. At Mid-Ohio, he was running a real steady, comfortable race. I felt that he could have been running up front a little further than he was, and he might be doing exactly the same thing today.
And here is Al Unser Jr., who apparently is still having his problems, although we may be nearing the time when we see possibly our first series of pit stops. At any rate, they are changing the rubber on the right side of the car and filling the car with fuel. Al Unser Jr. has been in the pits now for 17 seconds, and away he goes. So a 17.3-second stop.
About 200 miles, there'll be 2 stops for everybody, a minimum of 2. The normal stop between laps 35 and 40. Now, because of the problems they were having with this race car, it is possible that this was definitely one of their planned stops. They decided to take that first one early, maybe make the car go faster, and hope that they can stretch that second pit stop, or their third load of fuel, right up to the very end and finish with just 2 stops.
I think maybe that's what they were doing, Larry, because he wasn't, you know, the owner was on just a minute ago and said they weren't handling him well, and I think they come in for a tire change, figuring that they could change the stagger on the car and get him handled a little bit better, hoping for a yellow, and then this wouldn't cost him anything.
We continue to watch this battle for 5th and 6th position, Teo Fabi and Kevin Kogan. We have been mentioning about the constant speeds here at Michigan International Raceway, and Larry talked with Kevin about that.
What about the constant speeds? You're at a high speed at all points in this racetrack all the way around, and that's not something really that you cut your racing teeth on, something you had to get used to after you came here.
Well, that's true. Little by little, I think I feel a little bit better every time I do it. It's something that kind of grows on you. That's why a lot of the veterans are so good still on the ovals and not quite as good on the road races. I think that it's something that you can retain. You know, it's something you acquire and retain.
Kevin Kogan from Redondo Beach, California, running in 6th position at this point with 31 laps completed. And now Kevin Kogan is dropping low on the racetrack in turn number 4 and making a pit stop. We have been told that his crew has complained, or he has complained to the crew of a push in the car. I'm sure they'll be trying to adjust that situation while they change the tires, possibly, and fuel the car here on this pit stop.
People have ducked into the pits, and they're coming in a little earlier than we expected. But again, depending upon the mileage they're getting, they can afford to stop. Matter of fact, a lot of people, including our race leader, Bobby Rahal, followed by Tom Sneva, choose to come in the pit. They're obviously betting they're getting enough fuel that they can stop early on the second stop and still finish.
So 1st and 2nd position in the pits. This is our leader, Bobby Rahal. And on the bottom of your screen, Tom Sneva, who is running in 2nd position in that Texaco Star. Crews working feverishly on their respective machines, trying to get them out first. Tom Sneva has pitted to the south of Bobby Rahal, so he is going to win the battle out of the pit area. In fact, Bobby Rahal a little bit slow in getting out. Now he's beginning to move away from the pits, but he's still very slow, and this is going to give Tom Sneva quite an advantage as they get back on the racetrack.
Yes, it is. Tom's got a big jump on him now, way big jump. Rahal was real slow in getting out. He looked like he almost killed the engine. They kept him going, but he's going to be almost a quarter of a lap behind Tom Sneva now.
So here's the leader as of now, Mario Andretti, car number 3. However, he has not made a pit stop. We anticipate his doing so very, very shortly. We're already a third of the way through this race. As we have indicated to you, it's going to be pretty much of a sprint race. That is all out. No real strategy involved in this race. It's go flat out for the entire 200 miles and hope that you're up front when the checkered flag falls.
During this flurry of pit stops, I noticed Mike Mosley coasted in, and Gordy espied somebody else limping around turn number 4.
I think it's Pancho Carter just coasting real slow in 4, but I don't believe there's going to be a yellow because he's going to make it to the end of pit lane.
So it could be a situation where Pancho ran out of fuel, the car moving very slowly. Meanwhile, several of the other cars come into the pit area, including Teo Fabi and Howdy Holmes. Also in the pit area is Bill Alsop in car number 11. Here is Teo Fabi, who is running in 2nd position. Let's go to the pit area and Gary Lee.
The problem with Teo's position was not that of a conservative run. Barry Green, the team manager, said the Skull Bandit was pushing, so they're changing the stagger on this pit stop. They've changed the outside rubber, the left rear, top topped off the fuel, and Teo is underway.
Pretty good pit stop for Teo Fabi. Meanwhile, here is the driver who is leading the race, Mario Andretti, who is in for his first of two pit stops in this 200-mile event.
Gordy, the only guy who went 70 miles, which would mean 3 times 70 is 210, plenty enough to go 2 pit stops. Everybody else came in at about 60 miles. That means it might be tough.
Well, yes, I think Mario's been getting pretty good fuel mileage all year, it seems like, because it seems like he always has been, the races that I've watched anyway lately, the last 4 or 5, always has been the last one to stop on the fuel stop. So he's been getting better fuel mileage than the rest of them. There's no question about it.
Mario Andretti rolls back onto the racetrack after a 17-second pit stop. We've seen all of the leaders come in for their first series of pit stops. So now we'll go back to racing and resume our coverage from Michigan International Speedway for the first time in our event. The reason is because of a spin up at turn number 3 involving Josele Garza. There is the yellow light that's being displayed. And here's the situation. If he did not touch the wall up there in 3, he came very, very close.
I'll say he came close. Gordy,
it certainly looked like it. I thought he brushed it, not hard. You knew he didn't hit it hard, but I thought he brushed it, but evidently he didn't. They got him back in the pits, and they're changing tires on him now, because I'm certainly that they're really flat spotted, and he wouldn't last long that way.
You might also tell the fans at home what they're doing to Josele. They're not necessarily cooling him off, are they?
No, he's getting some menthol fumes in the cockpit of the car. They see him holding his hands over his eyes right now. It gets so bad sometimes that you can hardly breathe, that you just feel that you got to get out of the cockpit of the car. The wind is blowing the wrong way, and it blows the fumes right into the driver in the car.
Now here's an interesting situation, Gordy. The pace car is out on the track, and we almost had a pileup down at the entrance to the pit area as the pace car was going very slowly, and some of the cars got on the brakes real hard to prevent themselves from passing the pace car. And now we see the driver of the pace car waving the other drivers by.
Yeah, he definitely did motion them to go by, and the field is now filing by one at a time, cautiously going around the pace car, because they are well aware of the fact that once the pace car gets out in the speedway, that's the boss, and they're not allowed to pass that vehicle unless so signaled. You can see it vividly there. That's starting with the race leader, and I guess we're still showing Tom Sneva and Mario as the 2 leaders, at least Mario. Now we're showing Mario in 4th position. He was waved by the pace car.
Tom Sneva is your leader, and that's what the pace car is doing. They're passing everybody by until they catch up with Tom Sneva.
There we go.
All right, well, we have heard that perhaps Tom Sneva may be experiencing a brake problem, and there are some of the crews saying that Tom Sneva may be dropping some fluid out there on the racetrack, so we will be continuing to watch that situation as it develops.
Well, again, the reason for this caution flag was for a spin by Josele Garza between turns 3 and 4. We do not believe he touched the wall.
All right, we are under the yellow light, and we are on the radio once again with Tom Sneva, as Sneva is right behind the pace car now, shown as the leader of this race. Tom, any problems out there at this point? We understand that you may be having a brake problem with the car?
Yeah, I don't have the brakes I need out here. You know, fortunately at the track you don't use brakes at speed, but you know, I don't have much of a pedal, so it's a little apprehensive if something happens. But there's a little bit there. Other than that, the car is working fine and running good, so we'll just see what happens here.
Could that brake problem develop into something that would keep you from winning this race?
Oh, very possible. You know, I don't know for sure what it is, but it's very possible it could affect the outcome of this race.
All right, now we have heard from some of the other crews that there might be some smoke or some liquid falling from the rear of your race car. Is there any indication of that in the cockpit with you?
No, me and my rubber ducky are both dry.
All right, Tom, we'll continue to watch your progress out there.
Boy, he's really uptight, isn't he?
Okay, Mark, we need to look at this thing when it comes by and make sure everything's all right on this race car.
There's some conversation between Tom Sneva and his crew chief, Mark Bridges, telling Mark that they will definitely want to take a look at that situation as Tom comes around next time. So in the lead is Tom Sneva, running in 2nd position, car number 1, Rick Mears. In 3rd place, number 2, Bobby Rahal. The action of the Detroit News Grand Prix 200 from Michigan International's Raceway. Now, while we were away, Tom Sneva was black flag, did come in for some consultation, and there may be some problem with that car. He is at the tail of the field. We'll be watching him move up as the green flag falls once again here at Michigan. As they go into into turn number 1. It is Mike Mosley doing battle with Rick Mears here in turn number 2, and the black flag once again is being displayed to Tom Sneva as he comes by across the start-finish line, so he will have to make another pit stop.
Well, Bobby stopped under the yellow, and he was being closely observed by kart officials all the way around the racetrack, and Tom himself was running a little gingerly down the backstretch. He made no attempt to pass anybody, so he was giving everybody, including his own crew and the kart officials, an opportunity to kind of inspect that race car, and apparently they have spied something else, and the man who looked like he was going to be the one to beat today is going to be hauled back into the pits for another inspection.
All right, now Mike Mosley, who is in the middle of your screen, is a lap down. He is not on the lead lap. The leader of this race is Rick Mears. Second place is Bobby Rahal. Third place is car number 3, driven by Mario Andretti. And in fourth is Kevin Kogan in car number 6. That's the way they stack up as they race down the backstretch into turns number 3 and 4. Here comes the leader, Rick Mears, off of turn number 4, about to complete lap number 44. The average speed of the race just a little over 180 miles an hour, slowed because of the yellow caused by a spin involving Jose Legarza. Tom Sneva has entered the pits once again, and it looks like that they want desperately to get him back into the race, but there looks like to be some question as to whether he will be able to. There's a close shot of Tom Sneva as he waits patiently in that Texaco Star March. Tom was the leader of this race until something happened at the rear end of the car that caused him to lose some fluid.
He has lost at least one lap. He's rolling out of the pits right now. He's drag stripping out of the pits. Tom getting a little sideways. He hears the field coming around. He wants to avoid losing a second lap, but you're going to see them on the right side of the screen. Here they come, and there they go. There goes the leader, Rick Mears, and now Sneva is down 2 laps. That's unofficial, but we think he lost 2 laps while he was sitting in the pits.
Well, Gordy, you mentioned that brakes here aren't all that important except during pit stops.
Yeah, that's right, Bob. Here, if the car's handling well, the only place you really need a brakes on the racetrack out here is if somebody spins in front of you or you got an accident or something, then you need them, and you need them coming in for your pit stop. But as far as actually out there running them, it's a lot different than like if you were Phoenix or Milwaukee, you'd have to have a lot of brakes. You couldn't run without them.
And it looks like Bobby Rahal in second position is moving up quickly on Rick Mears, the leader of our race. The cars go into turn number 1. Rick Mears with about a half-second lead, and Rick Mears has about a 5.5-second lead on third place, Mario Andretti. Down the backstretch they go. First and second position, Rick Mears and Bobby Rahal.
Now, who would be running on the racetrack directly in front of Mario? The last time by, Mario Andretti was pointing to Nick Fenoro, the kart flagman.
That's Tom Sneva again,
running directly in front of Mario.
Yeah, so he's definitely got a leaking problem, oil problem or something. You can see it when he goes by here, and it looks like something that they're not going to be able to solve.
And Nick Fenoro reaches for the black flag once again, and Sneva receives the black flag once again. So Tom Sneva continuing to have his problems out there, and he'll be coming in again for a pit stop. Leader continues to be Rick Mears. Second place is Bobby Rahal. Third, Mario Andretti. Running in fourth place, Kevin Kogan. Fifth is Teo Fabi. In sixth position is Al Unser Sr. Seventh place, car number 12, and of course driven by John Paul Jr., the winner of the 500 here. He is a lap down, so we have 6 cars on the lead lap at this point. 48 laps completed, and we're almost to the halfway point as Tom Sneva comes into the pits once again as we continue to watch the leader, Rick Mears.
And before these caution flags, Gordy, you know, the average speed was well above 190 miles an hour. And I'm going through the record book here, and I see that the record for 200 miles is held by some guy by the name of Gordon Johncock. You remember that race in 1976?
Yeah, that's when we were really running quick and had a lot of work.
Tom Sneva is back in. Actually, he left before he was given permission by a kart official, so they black flagged him. They're making the most of this stop. They're wanting to change right side rubber as well as the left front. They're topping off the fuel in this 40-gallon alcohol fuel cell. Tom is frantically pointing to the left front, talking now to a kart official. He came sliding in. He locked up the brakes, slid actually past the point where he normally would stop. So again, there is a braking problem in car number 5. A very slow pit stop. They're checking out the rubber on the right side. The car is still up on the jacks, and now his teammate Kevin Kogan comes in. The crew was not ready, and Kevin shuts off the Cosworth. They attach the fuel hose But apparently the day is over for Kevin Kogan. This was an unplanned, unscheduled pit stop for Kogan in car number 6. He came in, shut off the Cosworth, and right now he's talking with the crew member. The crew member is helping him to unbuckle, and Kevin Kogan is climbing out of the car. We have a fire. We have a fire on board Tom Sneva's car. We can see the flames. That would mean it's oil because the alcohol would burn without the flame. They quickly douse it with water over the back cowling of the car. Sneva seems to be very patient in the cockpit. The engine dies. So, frantic activity in the pit area of the George Bignotti Dan Cotter team. Sneva's car is now down off the jacks, and he will be climbing out. So within the same lap, both Sneva and teammate Kevin Kogan will fall by the wayside.
All right, Gary, nice description of the activity down there in the pit area. Kevin Kogan was running in the top 6. In fact, he was the last car on the lead lap. However, he is in the pits now and has apparently dropped out of competition. The leader continues to be Rick Mears, and Bobby Rahal still running second. We hope to be able to get a word with Tom Sneva after we pause for these messages. Michigan International Speedway. Stay with us. Between Mario Andretti and Teo Fabi, the interval stretches out just a little bit, but less than a half a lap ago, these guys were going at it tooth and nail. Here's how they came into turn number 1.
That's Teo on the inside and Mario on the outside. Remember Tom Sneva's comments about how rough it is down in the bottom. You can just barely see that car popping around a little bit, Teo's car, and you see the courtesy room that Mario gave Teo. Teo, not much experience on a racetrack like this, but that was sure a fine job.
Well, unfortunately, the driver with whom we had established radio communication lasted just a little less than half of this race. Of course, we're referring to Tom Sneva, and he's with Gary Lee.
Tom, you gave us some thrills on the racetrack, but you also gave yourself and us some thrills in the pit area. What happened?
Well, you know, I don't know, we developed some kind of leak, and then I didn't have any rear brakes or something, so it was a little hard getting in and out of the pits, but car was working great. You know, the Texaco Star was fine on the racetrack. You know, we virtually run the thing flat out. We were just biding time. Rahal was quick early, but I think we were a little quicker in the corner. We were just a little short down the straightaway, and I think as the track got greasy, we would have closed in on Bobby.
There was some frantic activity around the rear of the car, but you were so calm in the cockpit. Were you aware there was some type of oil fire back there?
Well, I could see we were leaking a lot of oil, and I was just hoping we could solve the problem, you know, before it got more serious.
So to win, you have to go the distance, and not Tom Sneva's day.
Not the Texaco Star day, but there'll be other days for the Star.
Tom Sneva, now spectator.
All right, and on the racetrack, John Paul Jr., car number 12, the red car, is ahead of Mario Andretti as they go into turn number 1.
He just passed Mario through the tri-oval a lap ago. Now, John Paul somehow, in the scramble of the pit stops between laps 30 and 35, came up a lap short. Kart scoring is showing John Paul Jr. 1 lap down to the 5 cars that are on the lead lap. Remember that John Paul won the last time they were here.
And at about the same time that Tom Sneva dropped out of the race, so did his teammate, Kevin Kogan.
With all the activity around your teammate, no one expected to see what happened in front of the team car, and that's when you came in. What happened?
Well, the motor was tightening up. Ever since we made that stop, it just started pulling less and less and less RPMs. It was going to blow any second, so I just pulled it in.
No sense in breaking it all together.
What's that? Yeah, right, no sense.
So both team cars out of the race.
Kevin Kogan retires from competition, but John Paul Jr. still out there, although he is being shown as a lap down, running in 6th position. Leader continues to be Rick Mears, driving car number 1. 2nd place, Bobby Rahal. 3rd is Teo Fabi. 4th, Mario Andretti. And 5th, Alan Alonso Sr. Those 5 cars on the lead lap. A lap down, John Paul Jr. The number 99 of Jeff Brabham, also Chip Ganassi, shown as a lap down. Average speed of the race is 175.09 miles an hour. They'll be picking that up now because we have been under green for the last few laps. Well, we had an opportunity to talk to John Paul Jr. He, of course, comes from road racing experience, and we asked him about the comparison between the two.
What type of conditioning had to go on inside John Paul Jr.'s mind to make the move from the road course to the oval?
It's totally different. On a road course, you come up to a corner and you brake and shift down through the gears, turn in and get back on the throttle, whereas here you go at least a third of the way into the corner before you ever lift off the gas, and that was really the main thing, just getting to the point where you keep your foot on the floor.
Bob Well, he indicated to us that even at this point, after the 500-mile victory earlier in the year, he's just a little bit apprehensive running here, although certainly not enough to slow him down. You have to kind of keep in your mind and be aware of the consequences and respect it. You know, he's brought a lot of new things to IndyCar racing, even his uniform. His uniform was produced by a company called Bass Uniforms. He's a New York tailor who would like to break into Indianapolis car racing. Now, there's our leader. And Gordie Johncock, an interesting story.
Yes, I think so. Rick wasn't running all that well the first part of the race, but when they come in for the pit stop, they must have made some kind of adjustments. You know, they have communications back and forth on the radio, and Rick must have asked for some adjustments. And now he's running out in front, and he's giving Rahal a rough time, where at the first part of the race, he couldn't stay anywhere near Rahal.
Rick Mears, of course, a three-time CART PVG IndyCar World Series champion in 79, 81, and 82. However, this year hasn't been all that great for him, although he is in 4th position in the CART standings at this time. His best finishes this year: a 3rd place at Indianapolis, a 3rd at Milwaukee, and also a 3rd at the Pocono 500. He finished 4th at the Michigan 500 here earlier this year, and of course, you remember he was battling with John Paul Jr. into turn number 3 on the final lap when Rick lost control or something broke on the car, sending him into the retaining wall.
Well, Bob, last night you and I ran into Rick and his former teammate Kevin Cogan at dinner. They were dining together, and I was kidding Rick, saying that, gee, you really ought to have him covered, Rick, because the PC-10, and this is last year's car they're running here this week at Michigan, ought to know its way around this racetrack without you even driving it. Well, he said, I don't know that we're exuding that much confidence, and he bristled a little bit, but I'll tell you, the 10 looks pretty good right now, and things are looking good for Rick.
62 laps have been completed. Let's review the top 8 positions for you. Rick Mears, the leader. Bobby Rahal, 2nd. Teo Fabi, 3rd. Mario Andretti, 4th. 5th place, Al Unser Sr. Then John Paul Jr. 7th is Jeff Brabham, and in 8th position, Chip Ganassi. All the action Saturday, September 24th, beginning at 7:30 Eastern Time and 4:30 Pacific Time from the Ice World in Totowa, New Jersey. Jim Simpson and Al Bernstein bringing you all the excitement of Saturday night at the fights. We are at Michigan International Speedway this afternoon for running of the Detroit News 200. You know, earlier we asked the drivers what or who they were afraid of. Well, a little bit different angle this week. We asked them, who is your hero?
Al Unser, your hero.
My hero? Well, I would probably say the President of the United States, because I wouldn't want to be in his shoes.
Well, I've always admired politicians that can stand up to really high public stress, and I think somebody like Kennedy I admired a lot when I was a kid.
Well, I don't know. I enjoy a good laugh once in a while. It's kind of hard to make me laugh, and probably Walter Matthau. I think anytime that guy doesn't have to do anything, all I got to do is look at him, and he cracks me up. So.
I've got 3 of them. They're Magic Johnson, Rocky and Bullwinkle, and Larry Newber.
Actually, Larry Newber is one of my Jonathan Winters.
Who's your hero?
You are.
What we did not see was the gun that Larry Newber was holding to the guys' heads.
Now, wait a minute. I think it's only fair to point out that I am undefeated in media races.
After one race.
Well, 1 for 1 is undefeated. I also think it speaks well for the power of that microphone, doesn't it?
On the racetrack, a good race out here between Pete Halsmer and Tony Bettenhausen. Pete Halsmer showing the way there in that red number 66. Right behind him, Tony Bettenhausen Jr. And the leader, Rick Mears, comes into the pit. So does 2nd place Bobby Rahal. So the last of 2 pit stops being made here on the 68th lap. Both of the Penske cars are in. Behind Rick Mears, who we are watching right now, is his teammate Al Unser Sr. Work also being done on the Bobby Rahal car just in front of Rick Mears. A good stop for Rick, 16.5 seconds, and he's back out on the racetrack. Work still being done on the Bobby Rahal car. Now he moves out, and so they're going to fall into position just about the way they were before they came in for their stop.
Well, you take 68 laps out of a 100-lap race, figuring that you've got to go at least a third of the distance each time. It looks like Rick Mears is in pretty good shape. A very routine pit stop. Rick Mears is in and out. Both of his stops are complete, and now he has just 31 laps to go, and he's gone that distance at least once already today.
All right, Tony Bettenhausen did make the pass on Pete Halsmer down the backstretch as we were watching the Rick Mears pit stop, and Tony moves into 8th position. Nice move there on the low side of the racetrack in turn 3 by Tony.
Well, for Pete Halsmer, he's very happy to still be on the racetrack at this point in the race. They've had a lot of hard luck lately.
Yes, and if you notice on the pit stops again, Rick Mears got a big jump on Ray Hall. Ray Hall had a slow pit stop again for the second time in a row, and Mears is way out in front of him now, where they were only just a second or two apart, but he's got a big advantage on him now and a long ways to go to catch him in 30 laps.
Gordy, don't you think that Ray Hall must have a gearbox or perhaps some type of shift linkage problem? It's pretty unlikely that Bobby would have that much trouble 2 consecutive stops.
Well, it's possible unless the engine's not tuned just right. If your engine's not tuned just right and it lugs down to start with, you can have a serious problem getting out of there. And he's had some kind of problem today doing that every time.
On the racetrack, a battle for second position here, Mario Andretti and Rick Mears. Now, the leader of the race at this point is Teo Fabi, but he has not made the pit stop. There is Rick Mears going to the low side of the racetrack and moving into second position, passing Mario Andretti.
Both Andretti and Fabi yet to make that second pit stop, and no, nobody can go the distance. In case you're home and watching, maybe this was one of the first IndyCar races you've seen. These cars normally can go 70 to 80 miles. This was a 200-mile race. They can go 70 to 80 miles on a full load of fuel. And now we see Teo Fabi, the fabulous, fabled Fabi, rumbling down pit road.
So Teo makes his second and final pit stop of the afternoon, rolls that Skoal Bandit to a stop. Pit crew goes to work on it. They're going to be changing rubber, it looks like, on the right rear of the car, and looks like on the right front also, and the left rear also being changed, fuel being put in. Teo Fabi won at Mid-Ohio and also won the 500-mile race at Pocono International Raceway earlier this year. Going to not be a not particularly good stop. It's going to be a 22.5-second stop, about 5 seconds more than it took Rick Mears to make his final stop.
How nice, though, this year has been for the Forsythe racing team. You know, they came to IndyCar racing last year. They had Hector Farabaque, the Mexican, as their driver for a while. Matter of fact, he won a race on a road course, and Danny Sullivan performed so well early in the season. It's a well-organized team. There are some very fine folks on a personal level involved with the Forsythe racing team, and a lot of people are happy with their success.
So that moves Rick Mears into the lead once again, with Mario Andretti second and Bobby Rahal now in third position. Let's go to the pits for a comment from Gary Lee.
To address a problem that, Gordy, you alluded to, yes, there is a situation developing in the Red Roof Inn car number 2 with Bobby Rahal. He is leaving the pit slowly because of a clutch that is slipping. So indeed there is a problem at the exit of the pit for Bobby Rahal.
Well, yes, you could definitely tell there was a problem because the way he was getting out, and it could very well have cost him the race.
26 laps to go. 74 have been completed. There's Bobby Rahal on the racetrack, still running in third position. He's shown as about 10.5 seconds behind the leader, Rick Mears. Now, Rick Mears, this is pretty much his home racetrack and drives here quite a bit. Gordy, does that give him a decided advantage over the other drivers?
Well, I don't think so. Not on a big racetrack like this. It would give a guy more advantage like Bobby Rahal at Mid-Ohio, really, on a road course. It takes a little more to learn a road course, I believe, than it does a place like at Michigan International here, because this is a pretty well flat-out racetrack. Your car's working well. You stay on the throttle and you go.
3 cars are on the lead lap, namely Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, and Bobby Rahal. Chip Ganassi, the driver of car number 20, is shown in 7th position right now, and those are the Gordon Johncock colors out there, as a matter of fact.
Well, the colors look good, but I wish I was right there behind the wheel. Chip's been running a real steady race today. He hasn't been running all that quick, but he's had some good pit stops, running a good steady race, and if he stays together, he'll be well up there in the top 5, 6, 7, I believe so.
Now running in 7th position out on the racetrack, and Chip, of course, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Last year, here at this particular race, he started 17th and finished 16th, and in the Michigan 500 earlier this year, he started in 12th place and wound up in 8th position.
Well, his best finish so far this year has been that 8th finishing position at Michigan. He really expected to only run about 5 or 6 races this year, but he's really been the only element of success, at least on a continuous basis, that Pat Patrick's racing team has had this year. It's been a pretty good season for Chip Ganassi. He currently ranks 20th in the point standings, and he's on his way to winning over $100,000. Chip has won $93,000 so far. It looks like well over 25 competitors as we look at Mario Andretti, who's been among the top 3 all afternoon. Looks like well over 20, maybe as many as 30 competitors will win over $100,000 this year in the CART PPG World Series for Indy cars.
Mario Andretti was running in 2nd position, is in the pits for a stop. His second and final stop of the afternoon. The Timex timer keeps clicking off, and at about 21.4 seconds, the clock stops, and Mario Andretti moves back out onto the racetrack.
I'll tell you, Gordy, if they ever run a 220-mile race, this guy's going to win it hands down.
It looks like it by the fuel mileage is getting. But I might have one comment. If you want to know what a true pit stop is, you know, you time the driver from the time he goes by the start-finish line till he comes around and stops, till he leaves his pits, goes around and comes back again. The only thing they're timing actually is what the pit crew itself doing, not what the driver's doing.
That's very true. The time can be won and lost in that interval between slowing down and getting back up to speed.
And obviously the point being that a more experienced veteran driver can judge it perhaps a little more closely than what one of the younger drivers can. Stay on the accelerator to the last possible second, duck in the pits, make good time, safe time going down pit row, and also accelerate quickly.
Yeah, that's very true. I set up here today high where I could watch this pit action, and I've seen a lot of them that could have come in the pits and got out a lot faster than they've been doing it. They've lost a lot of time, but I'm not going to tell them that secret.
Well, because of that pit stop, Mario Andretti now falls a lap down, so only 2 cars now in the lead lap as we look at the point standings in the CART PPG IndyCar World Series for 1983. Al Unser Sr. is still the leader with 115 points. Teo Fabi is second with 88. Tom Sneva third with 82 points. Then Rick Mears with 71, and Mario Andretti fifth in the point standings with 68. Sixth, Bobby Rahal with 67 points. Al Unser Jr. has 66. Then John Paul Jr. with 59. Pancho Carter with 42. Mike Mosley is 10th in the point standings with 34.
And you get 24 wins, so you can see how Tom Sneva's dropping out today was a big blow to his hopes for the championship. It keeps shaking down. We've had this feeling all year that it's going to come down to be between Al Unser Sr. and Teo Fabi, although if Rick Mears' performance here today is any indication, maybe he can creep back up there. Bob, you know, there's also something about this particular race, the fall race here at Michigan International Speedway, that has been intriguing. In the year since 1968, they have run this race. Nobody has ever repeated. It's not that the attrition has been that high. It's just been something about this race that's been very competitive in most years. There have been just enough new faces to come along, and in all the years going back to 1968, when Ronnie Bucknam won the Memorial race, and by the way, in 1973, Bill Vukovich Jr. won his one and only Indianapolis-type car race. There has never been a repeat winner. 12 races, 12 faces, if you will, in the tradition of Talladega. Some of the people who have not won this race, Mike Mosley, John Paul Jr., and Al Unser Jr. Of course, Teo Fabi, his rookie year on the trail, he's never won one here, nor has Kevin Kogan or Pancho Carter.
Rick Mears continues to set the pace here at Michigan International Speedway, and Championship Auto Racing Teams and ESPN present a track fact.
They say that necessity is the mother of invention, and certainly Indianapolis teams are always coming up with some invention to make their race car go just a little faster. And sometimes to help their driver. Now, believe it or not, I'm holding one of those inventions. We have seen drivers on a high-banked racetrack compensating for the G-forces with those tether straps around their shoulder. The helmets sometimes lean a little bit to the left. Well, this team has invented a little metal device that's heavily padded, allowing this driver, Tony Bettenhausen, to rest his head against here, so that no matter how long the race on a high-banked racetrack, this driver never strains as far as the neck.
The rains we had here earlier at Michigan did not keep the crowd away. They are here in full to enjoy the Detroit News Grand Prix, and ESPN's coverage of the race continues after these messages. From Michigan International Speedway near Brooklyn, Michigan, of the Detroit News Grand Prix, a 200-mile race for Indy cars. The last time that Rick Mears won a race for Indy cars was in August 29th of 1982 at Riverside, California. He is 0 for 12, but looking for victory here this afternoon. He has a 10-second lead on Bobby Rahal with only 15 laps to go.
And if he were to win today, Gordy, what would that make us? Our 8th different winner on the trail in 1983?
8th or 9th, one or the other.
8th winner, right. 10 races.
There's only been 2 of them that's doubled up all year long. Fabi and Sneva.
So Rick Mears with a rather rather commanding lead on Bobby. We've been watching Bobby on the racetrack, and he certainly is not running nearly as strong as he did at the start of the race.
No, he's slowing down. There's something wrong with him because Chip and the STP car, they were just together there, and Chip is running away from him right now. So Bobby's definitely having some kind of problem.
Rick Mears going to the inside of Scott Brayton there in turn number 3, going low on the racetrack. And Mears continuing to run low on the track as he approaches Dick Simon coming off of turn number 4 onto the tri-oval. That's the completion of lap number 88. So only 12 laps to go, and only 2 cars on the lead lap. The average speed of the race with only 1 yellow period. That for a spin involving Jose Legarza, 180.05 miles an hour.
And Mears and Rahal have really put it to the rest of the field in the last 20 green flag laps that we had. And I tell you something, Gordy, I think your track record is in jeopardy. But Mears and Rahal now have a lap on the entire field. Even the 3rd running Teo Fabi and the 4th running Mario Andretti, the 5th running Al Unser Sr., who were at least competitive and in the hunt, so to speak, early on in this race, are now a lap down. So it has funneled down to a Rick Mears, Bobby Rahal race. And I'll tell you something, Gordy, it looks like Rick Mears is in absolute control and command right now.
Well, yes, I definitely think he is. And I don't understand where Teo got a lap down because he's been running pretty good. The only way that he's got down is slow getting in and out of the pits. I think that's what's really cost him today.
Rick Mears' teammate, Al Unser Sr., is running in 5th position, so it's going to be a good finish for the Penske team here if they can retain those positions. There is Al Unser Sr. headed in to the tri-oval in front of us, crossing the start-finish line. Al Unser raising his hand, it looked like, as he went into turn number 1. At any rate, he's running in 5th position at this point.
Well, if you've never been to the Michigan International Speedway, it really is one of the finest racing facilities and a very exciting racetrack. This, as we look at Al Unser Sr., currently ranked number 1 in the PPG Series for 83, also a 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Today is also GE Silicones Day here at the Michigan International Speedway, and the business community has really turned out for this racetrack, particularly in the last couple of years. If you've never been here, we're about midway between the Motor City, Detroit, and I guess you might call it Cereal City, Battle Creek, Michigan, which is in the southern part of the southern half of the state of Michigan. And it is also very close to one of those beds, one of those routes of the sport of automobile racing. Not too very far from where the guy standing next to me at his early jaunts behind the wheel of a race car, a place called Hastings, Michigan, right, Gordy?
Yes, right. And I live in Coldwater now, and I'm only 40 miles down the road from it. And this Michigan International Speedway is probably the most beautiful racing facilities that we have. Roger Penske and his people has taken over, and they've done one terrific job.
Gary Lee in the pit area, continuing to watch the activity from that location. Gary?
I'm standing right now in the Rick Mears pit where the last pit stop came on lap 69. Now his first pit stop came on lap 32. So according to our calculations, he should have enough fuel. However, it may be close because we have gone green virtually all the way. But as it stands right now, we should have enough fuel on board car number 1 to take him to victory lane.
Well, A.J. Foyt has written a very interesting book that will be released soon as we watch Rick Mears, and he makes comments about several of the current drivers on the CART PPG IndyCar World Series. Larry Nuber talked to Al Unser Sr.
Al, this week it was reported from AJ's book that he says you're the most underrated driver, or one of the most underrated. How can you win 3 500-mile races in Indianapolis and be underrated?
Well, I don't know. I appreciate Foyt's compliments and all that of what he said. It makes me feel good coming from somebody like him. So, but I don't know how I'm underrated.
That goes back to the beginning. That was your first ride at Indianapolis in one of his backup cars, was it not?
That it was. If it wasn't for AJ, I probably wouldn't be where I am today because of that ride. It surprisingly how it opens the doors, and with somebody like him that believes in somebody and gives them a chance, it helped me.
Unser Sr. in 5th position and the current leader in the PPG IndyCar World Series point standings. Rick Mears continues to hold the lead. Last year for this particular race, he started on the pole but wound up in 25th position, dropping out early with an engine problem. So Rick Mears is looking for his first win today in 13 races.
As we watch the man who looks like he has this race in hand, not to put a damper on proceedings, but we would like to make a comment about a couple of incidents we heard about through the news media overnight. This, by the way, is Chet Phillip. We'll come back to Chet in just a moment. We'd like to extend our condolences to the Jerry Carl family, whose son, we understand, Jimmy Carl, was killed in a private airplane crash yesterday, and also to Bill Marble of the United States Auto Club. We had an unconfirmed report that came from some pretty good sources, however, that one of his sons, Bill Marble Jr., was fatally injured. As now we look at Al Unser Jr. in the pits. Bill Marble Jr. was fatally injured in the sprint car last night in Indiana. Al Unser Jr. pulling out of the pit area. It's been another frustrating day for this young Charger, a guy who has run up front seemingly every race this year. As a matter of fact, this is the first one in quite some time that he has not been in the top 5. They had a tough weekend, and the weekend never got better, even up to race day.
Well, it certainly can happen that way to you sometimes, Larry. You know, no matter what you do, you can't correct it. There's some races you have that way, just unfortunately it happens.
And the Penske cars here battling on the racetrack. Rick Mears trying to put Al Unser Sr. 2 laps down as those cars move through turn number 4 here in front of the bleachers and the main grandstand. To the inside of the racetrack is Rick Mears. Outside is Al Unser Sr. And it looks like the Rick is going to put Al Sr. 2 laps down now. So the situation is, with 3 laps to go, the leader, Rick Mears, second place, 11.4 seconds behind, is Bobby Rahal. Third, a lap down, is Teo Fabi. Fourth is Mario Andretti. And fifth is Al Unser Sr. We've had a very clean and safe race to this point. A spin by Jose Legarza up in turn number 3, but no damage to the race car or, of course, to the driver. So we set up now for the final 2 laps of this race as Rick Mears crosses the start-finish line, moving around Al Unser Jr. in front of the main grandstand into turn number 1 again. He's 2 laps away from his first win in 12 races.
And prior to today, Rick's best finishes in 1983 were thirds. He had a couple of them back-to-back, one at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and one at Milwaukee. Back-to-back thirds and back-to-back races. As we now look at the attrition list for this afternoon. Chip Meade making one of his rare IndyCar appearances, dropping out early, along with Chris Neifel. Johnny Rutherford, also one of the first cars out of this race after a very optimistic qualifying run, which saw him set on the outside of row number 1.
And the white flag is being displayed to our leader, Rick Mears. He's on his final go-round of this 2-mile racetrack. We'll watch him negotiate the turns in the back stretch here on the final lap. There are a few cars ahead of him, a little bit of traffic to contend with, but that should give him no particular problem as he moves out of turn number 2 down the back stretch to the inside of the slower cars.
He's got to be thinking about last week when he saw Teo in his mirrors and had a problem driving into another mirror, if you will. This was Roger Mears.
Yeah, he might be thinking about him and his brother for the last lap last week.
And here he comes off of turn number 4. The checkered flag displayed to Rick Mears from Bakersfield, California, the winner of the Detroit News Grand Prix here at Michigan International Speedway. Rick already with that hand up in the air, saluting the crowd as he goes by. Second place, 11 seconds behind, Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio. Finishing third a lap down will be Teo Fabi and then Mario Andretti. So the Penske crew finally comes through with a victory.
Gordy, have you ever had a drought like that went 10, 15 races? That must be like winning your first IndyCar race when you cut one of those off.
Well, definitely. I've had them that long and longer, and I guess Al Unser, you know, for what, 3 or 4 years here, not very long ago, until he got on the Penske team, went through the same thing. And it gets pretty disappointing, but you got to stay out there and keep plugging away, because if you give up, you know, then your team gives up, and there's just no use. So every race, you got to look at it as a new race and give it your best shot.
This was a nice, clean, fast-paced race, just as we had expected. Only 2 cars on the lead lap. It was pretty much a situation where Rick Mears and Bobby Rahal took over and just left everybody else in the dust. Rick Mears moves the car into victory lane, and Gary Lee will be with him to interview him in just a moment. Once again, Rick Mears, the winner of this afternoon's kart race at Michigan, the Detroit News Grand Prix. Victory lane, but today it is Rick Mears in victory lane winning the Detroit News Grand Prix. And the winner's circle interview is brought to you by Castrol Motor Oil, engineered for today's smaller, higher revving engines. Here is Gary Lee.
Rick, first of all, congratulations. We have talked to you before in Victory Lane. I don't think I have ever seen a bigger grin. It's been a long time coming this season.
Well, I tell you, it has been a long time. I tell you, we're probably running farther back in point standings than we have in the last couple of years, but I tell you what, these guys have worked harder than they've ever worked in their life, and it's all paid off today. They've really busted their butts on the car, and the Pennzoil PC team was just working beautiful all day long, and they got me in and out. They were just talking about the margin of victory was probably about the margin of how quick our pit stops were over second place, and I got to put it to the guys. They got me in and out of there right when we needed it.
This season for you has been a study in Murphy's Law. If it could go wrong, it would go wrong, and you had to wonder sometime along the line, am I ever going to get back in Victory Lane?
Well, you know, I wanted to from time to time, but there was really no doubt. With a team like this, you got to be in Victory Lane every once in a while, and no matter what happens. So, you know, it has been a while coming, but it's all paid off.
But again, it was a sprint race, which meant you had to have good backup in the pit area, and you got it.
Absolutely. Our pits just, like you say, the race can be won or lost in the pits, and I feel we won the race in the pits today. And plus, the Pennzoil car was just working beautiful.
Congratulations, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Rick Mears, winner of today's Championship Auto Racing Teams event from Michigan International Speedway. Well, we're going to take a little break here, and after these messages, we'll have an update from Sports Center, and then we'll be back with live coverage of a 100-kilometer Super V race from Michigan. Stay with us on Auto Racing 83.
Big engines were easy.